Hi all. I want to have a bit of talk to you about bottle baby goats. There's a lot of information out there about the negatives and the positives of bottle feeding baby goats. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what works for me. And that's not saying that anything that anyone else did was wrong, but this is what works for me as a small herd goat farmer. Yeah, I have a total herd of grown goats of 13, and I've got 20 babies that are nearly a week old. So today is the first day that I've actually taken them from mum, and I have bottle fed them twice before, just to top up to make sure that mum was feeding them properly, because mum got a bit sick. She had a bit of retained placenta. Wasn't feeling real well, so she wasn't eating, so then her milk dropped. So we just topped them up with the other goat milk, which is the other thing which you've got to remember. If you are going to bottle feed babies, if at all possible, please try to get fresh, unpasteurized goat's milk for them. If not, get a good goat milk supplement. Do not feed them your powdered cow's milk. It's not great for them. They'll survive on it, but it's not great. So you can see here, this is Moonshine, she's a bush mini, and then these are her two twinny babies. So, the reasons I personally bottle feed is that I like to know that the babies are getting enough milk. I also like to make sure that they're not getting too much milk, because a baby goat that gets too much milk is overfed. They don't nibble on grass, they don't nibble on hay, they don't want to touch their feed, they won't touch the mineral mix because they're overfed, and their rumen is actually, in my belief, set backwards. If you look at goats in the wild or out with their mum in the herd, they're always nibbling on something that mum has, except for when they're really overfed. Now, I've taken care of goats for about 20 years. So I've had them since I was a tiny little girl. And then I got my own herd and we got out of it and then we got back into it. And hello, Moana. You want to say hello? You want to say hello? And I have had more success, healthier, happier, better growing babies from when they're about 12 weeks onwards, better with bottle babies, because their guts are more established. I always make sure that they get plenty of greens, they walk around with me, they have access to grass, to pickings, to hay, they nibble on the leftover grain from the mama goat. They still talk to the other goats. That's the other thing, is when you're bottle rearing babies, let them socialise with the herd, especially once they're on the bottle. So hello, Moana. So it's not hard to swap a baby goat. Sorry, she's got a hoof down my shirt. Moana. So it's not... There. Is that better? Now your centre of attention. It's important that they know they're a goat. They're not a human. They're not a pet as such. They're not a baby to be dressed up and mollycoddled. They are a farm animal. They have a purpose. They have meat. They have milk. They have whatever you have them for, whether it's just weed eating, hobby, show goats. So your goats are going to be quiet whether they're bottle reared or not. People think that bottle rearing babies make them quieter. It actually makes them a bigger pain in the butt because they're too quiet. They have no personal space, and they will get out of the paddock and they'll do more mischief when they're bottle babies, I can guarantee you. But it is harder to wean a baby goat that is on mum than one that you have bottle reared, which is a big reason we bottle rear our babies. I have a 4-paddock rotary system. So the rotation is they're in one paddock for about 8 weeks and they get changed to the next paddock and the next paddock. I fertilise my paddocks. I water my paddocks sometimes through the year. Just generally mowing and keeping them short. so that the ideal length for the goats. We also run a couple of potty calves and some geese in the paddocks as well. Now, if I was to leave these babies with mum, and we tried it through the years, to wean a baby goat, they get under fences, they get through fences, they break over fences. They will push their face against the fence so hard they'll actually rip their noses. They will hurt their hooves trying to get through fences. I've had dog netting, chicken netting, wiring, cattle panels, you name it, I've pretty much tried it. And it is extremely hard to wean a very determined baby goat when they're mother reared. When they're bottle reared, because they're no longer looking at mum for milk, they are quite happy to come up to us and beg us for milk, and they won't go and suckle on other goats. They won't be looking to the rest of the herd to supply the dwindling milk supply. Baby, don't stand in the milk water. So that's another reason why I bottle rear my babies. It's also because we bring them inside at night because it's just a bit cold here. I think they're not as hardy when they're bottle reared. Not to say that they don't do well, it's just when they're cold and they're with mum and they're suckling on mum, they'll cuddle up to mum and stay warm. If I was to leave bottle babies in their shed with no parent, they would curl up in a corner against cold tin where we are and get cold. I'm not going to do heat lights and that sort of thing in their paddocks just because it's... Sorry, I'm just a jungle gym. Because it's a bit hard where we are to run the power to the goat sheds. Look at you. Hey? Hello. The other reason we bottle feed babies is the mother doesn't get as worn out by chasing babies, especially when she's got two. I find most of my goats, when they have babies, they end up chasing around the babies here, there and everywhere, and not eating because there's always one baby going this way and one baby going that way. I mean, people might have other mothers that are a bit better at teaching their babies. Mine aren't. So we bottle rear, so during the day they live out in this little shed and mum has free access to the outside gate. So they talk to each other and bleat to each other and sniff each other's noses. And then by tomorrow afternoon, these babies will see me as mum. So they'll no longer be calling to their mum, their real mum. And at that point, I can then take them away from the paddock for longer and longer periods. And their mum will basically just go, they're not interested in me anymore. And she doesn't forget about them, but she's not as distressed as if I just take the babies away. Goats can get depression if you take their babies and they don't see them again, or they hear them inside your house or in your shed and they can't get to them. They will get depression. That can cause all sorts of issues with your mama goats. So this way, the babies have had the colostrum, the milk's starting to come in. By this stage, each goat's a bit different. Their mum takes about 6 days for her proper milk to come in. And yeah, so we pull them just after that because the stimulation from the baby goats suckling on them actually stimulates milk production. So it's quite good for the mum to have the opportunity to suckle them if you can. I always steal some colostrum from the mama goat at every kidding, and I put that in my freezers just in case we end up with orphan babies from anybody else, or I have a mama goat that doesn't produce milk. Sometimes when you get new little babies and you've got a young mum, her milk doesn't come in or she doesn't have very much colostrum. And if she has 4 babies or even twins, sometimes you'll get the stronger twin gets all the colostrum and the other one doesn't. So that's when I top them up with a little bit of colostrum. So it's, yeah, there's a multitude of reasons why we do it. So weaning's one of them. Goat health is one of them, just because I like them to start eating as early as possible. I weigh my baby goats when they're about 2 days old, and I take that as their birth weight. And then from there, you can say hello to the camera again, Moana. And from there, I will weigh them once a week. And as long as they're gaining weight at a good level, acceptable level, I'll keep doing that. If they start dropping weight, well, then I'll increase their milk or increase their feeds. So less milk, but more often. And then I will start weaning the babies when they are twice their birth weight. So some goats, that's 8 weeks. Some, that's 12 weeks. And I do a very, very slow wean. So I will start off with dropping 30 mils and then 50 mils and so on and so forth until it gets pretty boring. And then they just go, no, don't want this anymore, and always offer them fresh water. I do a salt water mix for them. They get minerals, they get hay, they get all the goodies. So just to recap, reasons why I bottle feed. 1, so I know the babies get enough milk. 2, because it's easier to wean because I've only got a small farm and it's easier to control them. I can just deny them the bottle and they won't go and try to suckle from other goats. 3, because I believe it's better for their gut development, I should say. 4, I like it. Let's admit it. Who doesn't like a bottled baby goat? It's easier to sell them when they're bottle babies. The weathers tend to be more friendly and easygoing. So if anyone wants to use them for a cart, it's quite easy to put a ring on a billy goat, desex them, however you want to say it. And then people can use them for pets or go-karts or whatever. Mind blank. What was the other reason I did? Other than I like it. And yeah, it is close and personal with the goats. So the goats have quite a lot of trust. And everybody's happy. And the mama goats, I milk them for about 12 to 18 months, depending on which nanny it is and how well they cope. Remembering that goats will not put much weight on at all if they're in milk. So if you want to fatten a goat, stop milking it. As always, worm it and that part of things. Some goats, I've got one that she doesn't like to dry off at all. So she holds her weight really, really well. And she will milk for about 4 months in pregnancy. So 4 months in pregnancy. So she has about a 2-month break if she will let me dry her off. Sometimes she does and sometimes she doesn't. The other good thing about bottle babies is they learn not to be scared of our dogs and our cats and loud noises and TVs and car horns. I also socialise them outside, so they will go to trips on the town with me and just hang out in the car with us. And they learn to not be scared of anything, so it makes a really, really bomb-proof nanny goat. I don't show my goats. I have no interest in showing goats. We just keep them for fun. So, and of course for producing for our farm. So I hope this drivel that I've said to you today helps you guys decide whether to feed your babies bottles, or whether you want to leave them on mum. But things to remember is a farm is only as good as its fence. So if you don't have good fencing, you're not going to be a happy farmer. Do what works for you. We can all give you advice about everything and say, oh, do this or do that, or this works for me or this works for someone else. But at the end of the day, you have to do what works for you and go by your gut. You will know when something's up with your babies. You will know when something's up with your mum if you watch them and you're with them every day. Goats need attention every single day. Doesn't matter if they're dry, doesn't matter if they're boar goats, doesn't matter if they're just for meat or they're just for eating weeds. If you handle your babies every day, whether it be for some banana peels, some treats, some banana chips, whatever, that interaction will make your life so much easier if something goes wrong. And when you got animals, Moonshine, don't try to headbutt the... Sorry, she's trying to headbutt the little dog we've got in here. You want to be able to handle your goats. You need to trim their hooves. You need to do all these things. And if you've got a good relationship with your goats, your life will be so much happier and so much easier. And goats are just so much fun. They really are. They're excellent things on the farm. So I'll sign off. Hope you all like to learn a little bit about bottle babies. There's growth charts, and there's the amount of milk each baby should be having at different stages. Every goat's an individual, just like every human baby. So when you go looking up the amount of milk to feed a baby, I always err on the side of caution. I start off with a small amount and look at their gut. So you don't want your baby goat to look like a bloated tick. You don't want them to look this massive, round, bloated belly. Really, really bad for them. So when you feed your baby goats, I start off with mine about 150 mils for just a normal size goat. And you look at the side of their belly and there's a dip where their gut is. You want that just to be flat. You don't want it bulging out at any point during the feed. Oh, I just sat in the water, didn't you, Moana? So you only want to feed them just enough that they're full. Because if you start overfilling them, you're going to end up with diarrhea and you're going to end up with issues. So yeah, just remember that. Don't overfeed your babies. Err on the side of caution. Take everything you read with a grain of salt, along with everything you hear, because just because it's written or said doesn't mean it's going to work for you or it's going to work at all. So talk to local goat owners, local goat clubs, but at the end of the day, do what works for you. I can't push this enough. I mean, you will get to know your babies. Talk to your local vets, find out what your problems are in your local area. If you've got like Barber's pole, polio, if you're in America, anything like that, talk. There is no harm in talking to someone and getting more knowledge. The more you educate yourself, the better you're going to be. So, signing off. Hey, we're going to sign off? I think we should sign off. What do you think? Signing off. Hope my drivel helps you all a little bit. Enjoy your goats. Enjoy life. Be safe. Be happy. And know that home is wherever you are. Bye.